They produced some of the most memorable hits of the 90s, but after these rockers, rappers, and pop stars stepped away from the spotlight, their deaths flew a bit under the radar. Type O Negative were among the darkest metal bands of all time, with songs preoccupied with death, pain, and the supernatural. Their droning, dreary music was brought to life by their deep-voiced frontman, Peter Steele.
Well, one of my favorite things in life, besides sex, is of course food.
In the mid-2000s, Steele retreated from public life to such a degree that fans speculated that he had died. Type O Negative even played into the rumors by reporting his death on their website, but the singer had actually checked into a drug rehab center to treat addictions to cocaine and alcohol, as well as a mental health facility to cope with paranoia triggered by the cocaine. He also served a month in prison for assault. Then in April 2010, Type O Negative's manager announced that Steele had died, and this time it was true. The cause of death was initially believed to be heart failure, but it was ultimately determined to be sepsis, which occurs when the body fights an infection so hard that it breaks down. In Steele's case, it was a result of diverticulitis, an inflammation in the large intestine. Born artist Leon Ivy Jr., rapper Coolio came up with some Los Angeles hip-hop collectives before striking out on his own. His first big hit arrived in 1994 with Fantastic Voyage, and then a year later came Gangsta's Paradise, which was featured in the movie Dangerous Minds. It was an absolute smash, spending 3 weeks at #1 on its way to becoming the top single of 1995. More hits followed, while Coolio branched out with other pursuits like hosting a cooking show and voicing Kwanzaa Bot on Futurama. On the afternoon of September 28, 2022, Coolio lost consciousness in a friend's bathroom. Emergency personnel arrived but were unable to revive him. Paramedics initially believed that a heart attack was the cause of death, but after an investigation found drugs and related equipment nearby, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner performed an autopsy. It was ultimately determined that Coolio died from an overdose of heroin, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. He was 59. In the late 80s and early 90s, Swedish duo Roxette were among the most reliable pop hit makers around. Per Gessle played most of the instruments and wrote the songs, while Marie Fredriksson provided the soaring vocals on ballads like Listen to Your Heart and catchy dance pop numbers like The Look and Joyride. Roxette's popularity in the US died down in the mid-90s, but they continued to score hits in Europe until the end of the decade. In 2002, Fredriksson was diagnosed with cancer upon the discovery of a brain tumor. She underwent treatment and was pronounced healthy enough to return to recording albums and playing shows in 2009. But under the advice of her doctors, she stopped performing live in 2016. Her health declined again though, and she died in December 2019 at the age of 61.
Her health was in and out, her vision was in and out, but the voice held up.
After the demise of the lip-syncing Milli Vanilli, producer Frank Farian created the Eurodance group La Bouche by setting up studio musicians with rapper Lane McRae and singer Melanie Thornton. They then released hit singles like Fallen in Love, Be My Lover, and Sweet Dreams, which were inescapable in the dance clubs and on the pop charts. When the 90s turned into the 2000s, Thornton left La Bouche to focus on a solo career, and her music sold particularly well in her adopted country of Germany. In the midst of promoting a Christmas single in November 2001, she got on a small plane heading from Berlin to Zurich for a concert. But as it approached the airport in Zurich, it malfunctioned and crashed into a nearby forest. Thornton was among the 24 people on board who died. She was only 34. In the mid-90s, mainstream hip-hop explored the dark side of life, with the duo Mobb Deep leading the charge on hardcore classics like The Infamous and Hell on Earth. Their albums depicted a violent and terrifying New York City and its criminal underground. The duo consisted of Havoc and his high school friend Albert Johnson, better known as Prodigy. Shortly after his birth, Prodigy was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia, a disorder in which red blood cells change form and die off, resulting in issues with circulation, motor skills, and extreme fatigue. In June 2017, Prodigy was performing in the heat at an outdoor festival in Las Vegas when he felt so awful that he checked into a hospital. While under the care of doctors, he ate an egg in his hospital room and a piece lodged itself in his airway, resulting in his choking death. He was only 42. Tony deftly combined old-fashioned soul, funk, and jazz with contemporary pop and hip-hop. During their heyday, the group consisted of guitarist and vocalist Dwayne Wiggins, his brother, singer and bassist Raphael Sadiq, and their cousin, drummer Timothy Christian Riley. In their 90s heyday, they released era-defining party starters like Feels Good and If I Had No Loot, as well as silky slow jams like Anniversary and Lay Your Head on My Pillow. After personal and professional tensions led to a split of the original lineup in 1998, Tony reunited for a tour in 2023, and Wiggins was excited about recording a new album. But that project never came to pass, as he ended up being diagnosed with bladder cancer. In March 2025, He died from complications of the disease at the age of 64.
He's a person that really walked in gratitude,
With a bouncy Spanish guitar riff serving as the hook, the New Zealand band OMC lured in listeners from all over the world to its 1996 smash How Bizarre. The song's lyrics told a dark story about a carjacking, delivered by frontman Pauly Fuemana. The group's name ironically stood for Otara Millionaires Club, a nod to Fuemana's home base, which was a historically poor suburb of South Auckland. Fuemana and his brother Phil made up the core of OMC, and they both died unexpectedly at young ages. Phil, who also worked as a label head, died in February 2005 of a heart attack at the age of 41. Pauly died 5 years later at the age of 40 from what was initially reported as pneumonia. His death certificate would later clarify that he died from progressive demyelinating polyneuropathy, a rare degenerative autoimmune disease that destroys nerves around the body. Brothers Atrell and Jarrett Cortez, aka Prince B and DJ Minute Mix, combined singing with rapping and introduced spirituality and psychedelic leanings into hip-hop as the founding members of PM Dawn. In the 90s, they put out moody, introspective, and progressive singles such as I'd Die Without You, Looking Through Patient Eyes, and the #1 hit Set Adrift on Memory Bliss. Prince B was diagnosed with diabetes in the 1990s, and he endured complications from the disease in the following years. In 2005, a stroke left him unable to move half of his body, and one of his legs had to be amputated below the kneecap because of gangrene. He eventually spent time living in nursing homes as his health deteriorated. He died from kidney disease in a hospital in New Jersey in June 2016. He was only 46. Australian rock band The Divinyls managed only one hit in the US, but it made a big impression. The bluntly racy self-pleasure anthem I Touch Myself hit #4 in 1991, its rise fueled by a provocative video featuring frontman Chrissy Amphlett. While their fame was short-lived in America, the Divinyls fared much better in their native country, where they scored a number of hits down under. The Divinyls broke up in 2009, and Amphlett was diagnosed with breast cancer the following year. An aggressive treatment regimen of radiation was unfortunately not possible because she also suffered from multiple sclerosis. 3 years later, she died in New York City from complications of cancer at the age of 53.
Sexy again.
Oh, thank you.
I knew that would make you happy.
Yes.
In the early 90s, Firehouse was among the last of the hair metal bands to hit it big. Vocalist CJ Snare co-wrote and sang on slow dance favorites like When I Look Into Your Eyes and Love of a Lifetime, as well as louder, more rocking tunes like Don't Treat Me Bad. In October 2023, Snare announced on his Instagram that he'd undergone surgery on his abdomen while also declaring, "Time to recover and get back to the stage." Then in February 2024, Snare revealed that he was recuperating and that he planned to perform with Firehouse again later that year. But then on April 5th of that same year, he died at his home at the age of 64 from cardiac arrest. His bandmates remembered him by writing on Facebook, "We are all in complete shock with CJ's untimely passing. CJ was arguably one of the best vocal talents of a generation. Our heartfelt condolences go out to the entire Snare family and all our beloved fans all over the world." David Cole was one of the major architects of 90s pop music. He spun records in New York City clubs, played on tracks for Janet Jackson and Fleetwood Mac, crafted dance remixes for Natalie Cole and Luther Vandross, and won an Album of the Year Grammy for helping to produce the Bodyguard soundtrack. He also teamed up with another producer, Robert Clavillas, to form CNC Music Factory, whose iconic club song Gonna Make You Sweat, Everybody Dance Now went to #1 in 1990. In the summer of 1994, CNC Music Factory enjoyed its final top 40 hit, Do You Wanna Get Funky, which was co-written by Cole. But by the following January, Cole was dead, reportedly of spinal meningitis, which he'd been diagnosed with about 1 year earlier. He was only 32. His passing would inspire his friend and frequent collaborator Mariah Carey to write her hit ballad, One Sweet Day.
He was just a great musician and also a great person.
In the early 90s, rock music was dominated by grunge. One of the genre's early success stories was Screaming Trees, who were fronted by Mark Lanegan. His gravelly vocals were all over alternative rock radio of the era. In addition to Screaming Trees, he also put out a collection of solo records. After the band broke up in 2000, he lent his skills to another hard rock group on the verge of its own success, Queens of the Stone Age. Lanegan continued recording and touring into the 21st century, but then a bout with COVID-19 in 2021 resulted in him losing the ability to hear and walk. He was hospitalized for several months and placed in a medically induced coma, though he recovered enough that he wrote about the experience for a memoir entitled Devil in a Coma. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be around for much longer, as he died in February 2022 at the age of 57. A statement posted to his Twitter account read, "Our beloved friend Mark Lanegan passed away this morning at his home in Killarney, Ireland. A beloved singer, songwriter, author, and musician, he was 57 and is survived by his wife Shelley." Guitarist and songwriter Doug Hopkins formed the Gin Blossoms in the mid-1980s, recruiting his friend Bill Lean to play bass and his skateboarding pal Robin Wilson to sing. They then went on to dominate the fertile music scene of Tempe, Arizona. Signed by A&M Records in 1990, the band soon got to work making a full-length album. Hopkins' lyrics reflected his symptoms of depression, as well as his increasingly worsening alcohol addiction, which made him an unreliable collaborator. Following the completion of the band's first major album, 1992's New Miserable Experience, the Gin Blossoms fired Hopkins at the behest of their label, even as the songs he wrote went on to become major rock hits.
It's really hard to watch someone you care about so much going so fast downhill.
Privately, Hopkins told friends that Gin Blossoms was exploiting him financially while he grew increasingly depressed over their success from his work. Then, in December 1993, he took his own life at his home. He was only 32. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org.